It's not often on Sarah's Country we admit that we can learn a thing or two from our Australian cousins. But when it comes to connecting farms, Australia certainly have vast challenges in comparison to us bouncing from hill to hill and enabling farmers to be able to use their cell phones in areas of poor connection in what is being described as a fence-to-fence wireless connectivity system. Joining us now from Connected Farms across the ditch is Tom Andrews. Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And also you're joining the race of what I understand is some competition heating up here for rural internet in New Zealand. And Connected Farms want to be very much a big part of that. Could you give us a bit of an understanding around the challenges that differ and are similar between Australia and New Zealand's rural connectivity?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for that, and thank you for having me on the show. There are some similarities, but the biggest one, which is actual just need for connectivity over farmland. That's a very common concern both here and in New Zealand. And it's not just from an ag tech perspective, it's for worker safety and so on, lone workers. All these things are very current issues, both here in Australia and in New Zealand. And that's what we, as Connected Farms, have set out to solve these problems and provide solutions. Differences are vast, where we've got very large, broadacre, flat as a billiard table farms here in Australia. You're quite right, in New Zealand, the terrain is much difficult. It's very similar to my native Scotland. So I've brought some tricks from Scotland that we'll use in New Zealand. And it's really, though, each farm is different. There's no cookie cutter solution for any farm because farming practices are different, farmer requirements are different, and of course terrain, size of farm and shape of farm are all things that influence the actual solution that is eventually deployed over the land.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like there is some competitiveness with not only Connected Farms, but Elon Musk's Starlink network building up a rural customer base here in New Zealand. What is your first sort of spade dig in the ground project from Connected Farms and your learnings today?
We're going to start with a broadband to the farmhouse offering or farm office, simply because that's a really good platform to start with. There's been tremendous work done with RPI2 and so on. Some of the WISPs over there, your Easy Connects and so on, have done some fantastic sterling work in getting coverage to the farmhouse, and that is the starting point, getting broadband connectivity to the farmhouse. And that's where we're going to start. And from that, we will then work to take that coverage over the land where the farmer needs it. After all, he doesn't spend all day sitting in front of his computer. He's out in his land. That's where he needs his connectivity, and that's where we'll deliver it to.
What's the sort of cost involved in creating wireless, mobile-like coverage across your farm before we start to go into those, productivity benefits? But, what's the average sort of setup of a sheep and beef farm that's got hilly terrain here in New Zealand?
It's very difficult to give an average cost because, like I said before, every farm's different in size and shape. So, obviously a smaller farm is going to be a lot less than bigger farms. In New Zealand, we've done some trials in the South Island down near in around Fairley, and we've looked at a range of farms there and farm sizes and done some cost analysis on that. And what we're trying to do is take it away from a capital cost, which could be, anything from, say, $50,000 to $120,000. We're trying to take that model off the table and replace it with a network as a service, and that could, very, very similar to a mobile phone plan. That's where we need to get to. A lot of that depends on how many farms we can get in local areas to come together, and that's very difficult. But where we can do that there is substantive savings in that. We can reduce the cost for all of the farmers if we do that. So that is our ultimate model to get that as software as sorry, not software, network as a service, and we can control that over our software and back of house platforms here as to the different types of plan and coverage that would be offered.
So therefore, if our listeners and viewers have very limited options where satellite might be the only option to get to the farmhouse, your system with Connected Farms can bolt in effectively to that?
Yes, absolutely. There's two parts to what we do. One is that, as I said, at the moment we're starting with broadband to the farmhouse, and we have our own satellite solution for that. But the coverage over the land, we will use any broadband connectivity that is, because we've got to acknowledge a lot of the farms already have broadband to the house, and all we will do is then take that signal. They'll still have the full broadband at the house, but we will spread a layer of coverage over the farm so they can use the mobile phone, as you alluded to earlier.
If we put the analogy to water in terms of the volume of the pipe and the pressure coming in, the one thing I think about is latency or signal delay when it comes to the house and then is distributed across. Am I going to need a large unlimited data plan and a large amount of download speed?
It depends what you're using it for. Things like satellite are no use for example, if you're a gamer or if you've got kids who are gamers, satellite, the latency just doesn't make it work. It's never going to be successful. But for business applications, for ag tech, they tend to not use a huge amount of data. Voice uses very little data. A 5 to 10 minute call usually is only about 5 to 7 megabits used in actual data consumption. So unlimited plans are great, and that's certainly what we're offering as a satellite broadband plan. They're all unlimited, but the actual consumption and for voice, which is what a lot of the use will be for, is negligible. And then, of course, when you look at the lower sensor use, the IoT applications, they only use like 12 bits per signal, and some of them, say a water trough, may only report in twice a day. So the actual consumption is very little, and it's only when you get involved in advanced mapping software. So for planting patterns and fertilizer application patterns, they can use a lot more data, but only because they're downloading imagery, and that can actually take quite a lot of data.
Can you give us some practical examples on this farm in Fairlie of what type of agri-technology they're using and what type of management decisions they can make based on that information?
Well, to a limited extent, yes. We actually only provided the connectivity piece. We didn't actually provide any of the ag tech solutions, and that's a very important point for connected farms, which I might just digress a little bit into. That's where we see our role in the market is to provide a connectivity solution, and then the choice of ag tech then comes down to the farmer. In the same way, farmers don't like getting boxed into having to use a particular service agent for the tractors and so on. It's exactly the same with us. They're free to use whoever they want for farm management software, for the sensors, as long as the sensors comply with LoRaWAN or Wi-Fi standards and so on, they can plug into our network. So they're completely agnostic as far as we're concerned as to what they're. So things that have been used are examples of trough sensors to find out what the trough operating water levels and so on are. We've not had experience in New Zealand, but in Australia we've actually had sensors on animals, and that has been a voyage of discovery because animals tend to not like wearing wearables and remove them at the first opportunity. But we have seen those sort of things in use. And really, the infrastructure that can be used for is everything from moisture content on soils. So, say on the east coast of South Island, where you've got a lot of dairy and irrigation, you can actually look at what the soil moisture content is and optimize your irrigation patterns and so on around that. And even control the amount of water you're using. So they're the types of applications, not just us, anybody who's involved in ag tech see that, but I must stress that we provide the connectivity layer that enables that. That's what we do. We enable digital agriculture.
Tom, that is the one crucial part that we need, is exactly what you do. We talk about some fantastic agri-tech applications on farm, and the farmer that is listening to the show is saying, yeah, that's all well and good if I've got reliable, good connected broadband, and so therefore you're that crucial piece in the middle. And I mean, we've had on the show last week talking around what a smart pivot irrigator will look like, the applications of that. Halter and Allflex are playing in, cow collars. It's absolutely incredible where this can go, and what a smart farm of the future will look like, all thanks to the likes of Connected Farm, who are playing now very seriously in the New Zealand market from what they have learnt in Australia. Thank you so much for your time, Chief Executive for Connected Farms there, Tom Andrews.
Oh, nice boots.
Yeah, thanks. They're new.
Ben, you all right?
Oh, yeah, sorry, mate. Just meerkatting pretty hard, eh? Yeah. I just said to myself, Ben, you work hard. You deserve new boots.